Yeah. Cool. All right, so this is the, what are we, May? M365 Sydney Meetup. We're here to talk about stuff, being Defender ATP and all the awesomeness that you can get with the E5 licensing, as well as whatever else occurs during the conversation. Those that are on the call, feel free to unmute, chat, ask us questions, engage. We're always keen for that.
I'm going to be actively monitoring the chat as well. So if anyone's got any questions for whoever's speaking, just ask your questions in the chat if you don't want to speak out, and I'll make sure that gets floated to the top.
Yep. Cool. So, well, how do we want to run it, Ben? Do you want to? This is how organised we are. We haven't even started planning on how.
Hey, I'm still technically working. So if you just want to share your screen. We'll just go through the session that we've recorded already, and yeah.
Give me a second. I'll share my screen. Let's do screen.
So just in case anyone is immediately feeling like they're going to fall asleep because we're talking about security, I promise you that it's fun. Security is not something that I tend to find myself wanting to think about, but a lot of this stuff actually allows us to do advanced management of devices as well. If we think about it in that plane, we can actually start using some of our sort of end user compute or modern management principles in security, which is kind of cool.
Yep. So before I start diving into the demo and talking through all of the tech, how many people have actually looked at Defender ATP, played around with that, the Security Center.Microsoft tenant space?
It's been a while.
Well, you're in for a treat. There's a whole heap of new stuff that's come up.
Cool. We got a couple of people in the chat that have. So awesome. Hopefully this is new,
yes.
New for you.
So there's a couple of new features that we'll go through that are in the process of being released and in preview. So I think let's start off with the web filtering stuff. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. So one of the big pain points that we've always had to worry about is you've got that proxy on-prem, right? If you're wanting to control how people get access to websites, things like that, you go, all right, well, I need to put a proxy and then I need to route all my traffic, but you're working from home. So if we're working from home, that means I have to then have an always-on full VPN, no split tunneling, no just straight forced tunneling. So one of the scenarios that's been added to Defender ATP recently, it's currently in preview as well, worth looking at, is, if I can remember where it's at, web protection here under reports. So to get here, obviously you go to securitycenter.microsoft.com and we go to web protection. Web protection, we've already set this up in our tenant because we did it for our demo that you'll see in the podcast coming out soon. But one of the cool features that we've got here is the ability to stop or block content. So this is leveraging a product called Siren underneath it all. And Ben, would I be able to get you to drop in a link for that?
For Siren?
Yeah, the Siren.
Yeah, give me one.
The docs link that we had previously.
Yep. Let me just grab it.
Cool. So what that's going to do, let me just close some stuff on my VM so I don't share everybody's details. So what we should be able to block here, this is my test VM. And if I go to, I think I blocked everything. No, didn't block everything. What did we block? So here's the settings here. We're blocking on, that's right. We go down here to settings to turn it on, and we can go to web content filtering. So web content filtering is that typical configuration, and we've set it to all devices in the scope. And if we go to, Let's see if we can go to Skype.
So when we were doing this for our training course, we set the policy and we deployed it out. And for the life of us, we couldn't get it to apply. And it wasn't that it wasn't applying. It's that as most of these things, it does take a while for the device to poll and pull that content down. So just be aware that this isn't a rapid. You don't change it in like 3 seconds later. It's live. This is a planned deployment, much like anything else is in modern management.
Yep. So the initial policy takes at least an hour to come down, and then after that, it's every 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So you'll see here we hit Twitter and it's been blocked. And that's straight away we're sitting there and saying you're not allowed to go there. And we're like, all right, that's in the new edge. But what about if we go across here to Internet Explorer and we go to, once I get it all to load up the first time, and we go to twitter.com, and that should have been blocked. It must be because it hasn't loaded the policy yet. But that will block it the same way, and it'll come back and say, you're not allowed to go here. And that's for us to set that up. And obviously this is a shameless plug for what Ben and I have been doing with the Intune training series. It took us less than 5 minutes to set that up, and it's super simple to use once it's in place. So it's something that it gives you that flexibility, that scalability for doing that proxy support without having to have everything going full tunnel back to your data center, because nobody wants to have all that traffic coming back.
Exactly.
In these situations.
And I just think sorry, go ahead with the questions.
Oh, so sorry. So the policies are applied on the local machine, right?
Yep.
So that the local machine handles the filtering.
That's
so there can be a difference between machine A and machine B and what sites they are currently blocking, because they have different policies applied, right?
That's correct. So
you can
assign yet, or
well, so whether it's synced or not, you can deploy based on security groups, right? So you can have conditional policies. So, say your management team for whatever reason needs specific access to social media, but the rest of your team doesn't. That gives you the ability to filter that down. If for whatever reason someone hasn't got it because it hasn't synchronized, that's not something you need to worry about. It's just a simple case of it will eventually show up.
But from a troubleshooting point of view, normally if you have a regular proxy server, if you apply a policy, it applies to everyone who hits the proxy server.
Totally.
In this case, there can be a difference because one client has synced and another hasn't yet. So, it can.
And that's probably fair statement. It comes down to the policy coming down, but this is no different to say like the Cisco Umbrella, or any of those technologies doing the same sort of thing.
Steve, we've got a question here. So just what other browsers aside from Edge and Internet Explorer does this cover, if you know?
To my understanding, it covers Firefox and Chrome and all of the other browsers, because it's looking at the lower layer.
Yeah.
Not the actual web browser itself. So it's sitting at the network transport layer, not the
for sure.
Browser. But I would need to have that clarified, and I'm not in a position to commit 100% that is the case.
Yeah, so I tend to agree. I've got a Mac, surprisingly, in my house. I'm still shaking my head at that. But what we can do is we can test this and just confirm with everyone, or let everyone know. But as Mark said in the comments as well, I don't actually think it's specifically browser based. I think this is actually machine level or network level lockdown. So, desktop apps that, say you've got an application that accesses Twitter, and you've got social media blocked, it should block that as well. The idea here is that instead of just blocking apps from accessing things, we're blocking access to those resources based on content filtering.
So if we look back over here, you'll see that it's getting popped by Defender Smart Screen. So what that's telling me is Defender is sitting there and saying it's not passing smart screen for your device, so therefore you can't access it.
Yeah. So let's try this and see what happens.
Yeah.
Be curious.
Yeah, I think that was my understanding when I first looked at it too, is that it actually comes from Defender and leverages out of Defender technology, not just whatever
Yeah.
browser you're in.
Yeah.
In
We need
terms of,
to. Yeah. We need
not
to.
like the old
confirm-
IE smart screen.
Yes. Exactly.
It's a little bit more powerful.
Yeah,
than
it's
the
not
IE
browser.
smart
It
screen.
shouldn't be just browser-based smart screen. Although, I mean, we did just get into Twitter from that web app, so who knows? We'd need to do some further testing, and this is all fairly shiny and new. So
Yeah. So this is currently in preview at the moment. During the preview, you can sign up to the Siren API, which brings in all of those content rules. So all of these rules here, if we go to web content filtering and we go and create a policy, and let's just call this demo, and we go next. All of these are coming and being created by Siren, which is a third-party product that
Yeah.
Microsoft's
partnering.
pointing you to and partnering with to get that content.
No, we cannot. So sorry, this is a question for people that aren't following the chat. Do we have any word on Siren pricing model? We do not. This is all so new that basically what Siren and Microsoft are saying is watch this space. We will let you know once there is a pricing model. So if you're in this group, hopefully you're in a position where you enjoy the bleeding edge as much as we do. You can reach out now, and a Siren rep will contact you, and you can work out a pricing structure. There will be a standardized model, and whether Microsoft does what Microsoft does and Siren becomes a Microsoft product, we don't know. It's all very fresh. So the recommendation is if you're interested in this, and I can't see why you wouldn't be, reach out, and you sort of get a tailored pricing model sent to you.
Exactly. So it's well worth having a look at. So one of the other cool features that I really love in Defender ATP that I want to demo that I think surprised Ben a little bit when we showed him, or when I showed him 2 weeks ago what we could do, is we can now go to the devices. This is my little device here. We'll bring it up just to show what we've got here. Close everything down and we go here, same thing, host name. So you'll see this is the same device.
Yep.
What we can do here is we can hit the 3 dots at the end here, and we want to do an initiate live response session. So how many people on the call are sitting there and going, with Intune, I miss the ability to go to $?
Yeah.
I'm assuming everybody's sitting there and nodding their head and not wanting to come off mute.
Oh, they're all just so excited that they can't talk right now.
Exactly. So what we have here is a session. It's not a full session. It's limited using the Sense IR engine that allows us to connect in and see information on that device. So if we do like a DIR, what if we want Bash?
Wrong user group, buddy.
Yeah. Bash probably works if you're going to do live response onto a Linux device, which is supported in Defender ATP.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing here is a DIR of that device, right? So if I go over here and we'll just bring up Windows Explorer, and we've got everything all turned on, and you'll see all those same files and configurations, plus some stuff that we've been using for demos. So if I go to CD demo as an example, I can go and browse through it. I can go and have a look at stuff. What I can't do is I can't run executables. I can't run PowerShell full commands straight off the bat. But I do have the ability to sit here and upload files, and I can upload scripts into that directory. And what that gives us is the ability, once it's up there, to execute those scripts and do stuff on the device.
Yeah. So someone's Mark has just said no posh, no PowerShell. Technically, we've got a little bit of PowerShell in here. It's not a PowerShell client. But what we can do is once you've done your LS, just do like a get command or whatever and show what we can see.
Yeah.
Mark, I like you being an attendee as well.
we'll denote you from being an attendee. Yes.
Yeah. Attendee with benefits.
That's right. All right. So if we do the question mark, because obviously the question mark gives us everything that we want to see. These are the commands that we see. That's it. There are no more commands beyond that.
Yep.
It's not a huge amount. It's one of these simple things. But what you'll note here is I have if I go back to the VM and I open up PowerShell and I go to c:demo/virus. Can't remember what we did with it.
No, so we we created a virus and we actually blocked it using the SenseLayer live response command line, which we could technically reproduce now, which I think it might be cool to show people how it works.
That's what I was going to do, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Spoil the demo much?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, all right. So what you'll see here is we have a script, C demo virus, right? It doesn't run because, well, let's have a look.
File info doesn't exist.
Virus. And literally it's trying to get the file info of itself. And it's just sitting there and getting a recursive loop, right? It's a bogus script, but it's there to prove a point of what we can do with it. So if we close that out.
We'll just create a new script, I guess.
Well, no, we'll use that script because it doesn't need to run.
Okay.
What we're going to do here is, let's see if we can remember what it is. We want to remediate.
c:demo/demo/virus.ps1.
PS1.
Is that also that flag?
Auto.
Yeah. So what remediate's doing is actually it relies on a couple of other commands, but with that auto flag, it should.
What's the bit we actually need to like put the whole character across? So if you don't know what the command is, just open it up, type. Let's go here. And we're just going to do the /question mark and it'll give us all of the information that we need. So we need to put a type and then we can go and sit there and say what it is. So we're going to do type file. And the reason why we put the -auto there, what's that? We have to do this.
Put in the path first, man.
Type.
Alternatively, if you type in help and then remediate, it's going to tell you exactly how to run the thing.
Got this working perfectly last time.
Yeah.
There we go. What we had to do was just not put -type. We just had to put file.
File. Cool.
So you'll see here it's going and running file info command in progress. So that's running. If we scroll up a little bit here, we have what's called file info, and it shows the info of a file, which is going and getting the hash and a whole heap of additional things. What that then goes and completes is the remediation command. So without the -auto command or switch there, it forces you to do it one by one and execute that policy.
Yeah.
But what this is going and doing under the hood is actually pretty cool in the sense that we'll wait for it to run through and say it's completed, which is taking a little bit of time. This channel isn't fast. That's the important thing to remember. And for some reason, it's taking a little, it's coming in depending often on my device. So I'm guessing I may have some network contention with some VMs. Let me just close some of these.
The important thing to note while we're waiting for this to load is that all the work that we're doing here is not impacting the end user at all. So the scenario that we're sort of demoing here is we've been alerted that there's a potential issue with an end user's machine. We're not 100% sure that that's a problem yet or not, but we have identified that there is a file on the machine that might be doing something that we don't like. So we've gone in here, we've started the remediation. The end user is not interrupted, which is the key thing. Not that they're worried or we're worried at the moment, but at the end of the day, any interruption to someone working on the machine is a loss in productivity. So we're sitting there and we're analyzing the machine to see whether there's a problem without them being interrupted. And that can't be stressed enough at how beneficial this is.
Yep. And you'll see here it's now come back and stated that it's been quarantined and the process is finished. So if we just go back and try and run that script, it's actually saying it can't find the script.
No, .trace it did.
It's not there because what has happened is it's quarantined that file.
Mm.
If I had taken a copy of that file before we went through all of this, and then I pasted it somewhere else on the directory, as soon as I tried running that executable, the PS1 script or whatever, it would go, hey, you're not supposed to run this, and remove it from your computer.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty cool. Sweet. All right. Well, that's the simple stuff that we wanted to quickly go through today. Does anybody have any use cases or concerns around how, no, not use cases. Does anybody see value in what we're talking about here and how they would use it in their environments?
Give you time to answer.
Yeah.
I mean, my initial scenario of seeing this is that it lets me able to jump into the machine and just verify. Say I've deployed a Win32 package that's a custom application with scripts and all sorts of nonsense. I haven't tested it. I need to be able to jump onto the machine to verify, whether at least log files have been created so that I know that it's run. I can remote onto the machine and I can just check that. If I want to check printers, if I want to check things like that, I should be able to access that stuff as well. Eric has asked, wouldn't Defender ATP block itself? I don't think so.
So not necessarily. So this could be, if it was a virus, yes. But you may have, let's pick a random arbitrary application that you might not want on your own computers or on an end user's computer, say zoom.exe. And you've got somebody in the middle of a meeting that you don't want them to continue having that meeting. What we're going to do is we're going to quarantine that process.
Yeah.
And then we can forcibly kill it. And that's going to stop that task from running. It'll sit there and say, you're not allowed to run zoom.exe on that computer anymore because you're in a secure location that isn't supposed to be having team meetings.
And the important thing there is if we want to go down this route of stepping all over Zoom, you could potentially block a version of that executable. So, the case right now is that, they're recommending to everyone that, 5.0 is the latest version that should be going out. You could block 4.0 because it's all based on hash checks and CRCs of the file. So if you blocked an executable at a certain version level and installed the latest version, it would work. So, that's a scenario. We do have a question from Eric. He was asking, so I guess this is in a scenario where we were doing this in a production environment. What gave us the alert that we needed to investigate this? Or what could we use to create alerts to investigate problems?
Yep, and that's a great question, because there's the alerts queue here, which, because of how awesome our tenant is and we only have one device registered, we don't have anything sitting here, but we can also go and create advanced hunting rules. So if you notice an executable, a suspicious executable running on a device, you can go and create an alert rule or a detection rule from there that will then allow it to create an alert. And from there, you can then go, oh, I need to go and do stuff.
Yeah.
So I think we published a really simple blog about this, or script about how to query Defender ATP recently, Ben.
I think
that-
I know we spoke about it.
Can that do stuff mean block? Set up the rule so it blocks as well until you've gone throughout the organization, and then until you've got confirmation it's good or bad?
Yes, but that's not in here. That's over here. If we go to, let's make sure we do endpoint.microsoft.com. All right. I'm going to do a little bit of a divergence here, because it's actually important to capture this and have this conversation. People who are using portal.azure.com to access Intune from August 1, that's no longer going to be available for Intune. You need to use endpoint.microsoft.com. And it's full featured. There's actually components coming into endpoint.microsoft.com that has that information there.
Yeah.
So one of the cool things in here is endpoint security, and then we go to, where is it? Is it endpoint detection and response, or was it antivirus?
Try antivirus, yeah.
And we go in here, and we want to go to properties, and we're going to edit. One of the things that we can set in here is our cloud protection or cloud delivered protection level. So if we put that to 0 tolerance, that basically states if you're not signed, you're not allowed to run, because it's going and checking against your validated applications and will stop it if it's not there. There's also this timeout. So by default, it will run for 10 seconds, checking to see if it's there. And if it can't find it in its library, it'll go nah or yes, depending on the heuristics that have come through it as well.
Yeah. So you can lock yourself down quite significantly in this scenario for good or bad.
Yeah. So to answer David's question around setting email alerts, advanced settings, and you can have that pop into help desk and service desk systems. One of the other things that Ben and I looked at my previous employer was the ability to pop it up into Teams, so into Teams channels. So if your support team is sitting there and having that very simple process of, well, all of my communications about tenant A come through Teams in this channel, let's put all of the information into one place.
Yeah.
And that's hitting the API in here.
You could probably get pretty advanced as well and, set up Sentinel, analytics and all that sort of stuff to trigger alerts. It's really what we're doing here is the last part. So how that alert gets generated could be another session in and of its own. There are so many different ways to monitor an alert. This is just, so now you've got the alert, what do you do?
Yep, definitely. And it's not even just, I've got an alert. I want to do an exploratory understanding of what's going on that device.
Exactly.
Pulling that information back.
I'm more thinking around the scenario that, say you've got Sentinel set up to analyze for, strange network traffic.
Yep.
And you got a constant, every day you got the same red flag on one device. You would then go in and use this Sense IR remote connection to just go in and have a look, see whether there's any software that's going on, and then from there you'd start locking things down.
And here's where we went in there and you can see that it's detected that we've got the virus PS1 file there. And this is something that we define on the fly, and it's now being caught up every time you try and run that, execute that file.
Yeah.
And it'll go and clean it up, remediate it, and clean it off the device.
Here's a demo for you. Say you've just defined a file, say virus.ps1 as a virus or as a quarantined item, but you go then to find that it isn't a virus and you need to roll that back. How do you do that?
That's a great question, and I don't know. So this is where, well,
should be able to from here. There should be a way to.
There is, but I haven't done it. So
let's find it out and we'll share it.
Yeah.
Probably goes without saying. So when we put up last month's video recently, I immediately put and notified everyone on Twitter. There's obviously quite a few people that potentially don't use Twitter or don't look at that sort of stuff. We'll make sure any new videos or any new notifications or anything that we're talking about here that we say that we're going to put up, we'll put it up in the Meetup as well as Twitter. Just to help out everyone. It was an oversight on my behalf.
Yep. So here's a copy of the file as well, so we can actually look at it.
Yeah.
So
Stefan just said check the indicators. Yeah.
Indicator. Ooh. Device.
In settings.
Indicators. There it is there.
Yeah. So there's the action. So if you go up the response action, we can set that to allow.
Yep.
And I believe the benefit of this is that not only can we set it to allow, but we can continue to monitor it. So we can say, yeah, look, we don't know what that is. We'll allow it, but we'll continue to look at this file.
Yep. And that's the big thing. We can also do the whole alert suppression, which I don't recommend unless you're spending a lot of time. We also have the bad app rule here as well. And we are triggering an action which has nothing on it. So this is where you would have an alert coming through the advanced hunting, and you
can you go into edit?
Edit. Let's have a look.
We may as well just play around in here.
Actually, I know what we want to look at. We want to look at modify query, and that's where we've got that device entry equals ASR.
This is in Kusto, yeah.
Yes, this is all Kusto. Kusto is awesome.
Let me bring up a thing. If anyone hasn't heard of Kusto or hasn't looked into it, it's basically Microsoft's new replacement, the evolution of WQL or SQL queries. It is sort of the language that is used for all cloud security moving forward for all sort of these sort of queries. It's definitely worth looking into, and it's not complicated.
So for those at home playing with Config Manager, it's the same as what we use for CM Pivot. So same scripting language, same everything. It's the common terminology is Kusto for the language, which is pretty awesome.
It is.
And
yes, it is the same for log analytics. It's also the same for Sentinel. It's it's going to be the new standard. So the sooner you understand it, the better.
Yep. And I completely agree, Mark. CM Pivot was a bit of a game changer there.
So it changed the game, did it?
Yeah, it did. Maybe it changed the wallpaper to a game.
I can do that.
So for those of you that haven't had much of an exposure to Defender ATP, and look, I know I keep on going back to Defender ATP and discussing it, even though it's an E5 license and it costs a little bit more for everybody. These are the powerful things that we get around that. We get the whole, well, you need to update Windows 10. So no duh. But then it'll come in here and it'll start giving you that job list of what you need to do around fixing the security of your environment, of your devices. And there's some really, really cool stuff.
Can I just bring up this conversation? And David, if you want to unmute yourself. So he's just said Defender ATP is available on separate standalone SKUs now. Which ones are they?
Well, I've bought through my CSP reseller the Defender ATP SKU, which has got all the stuff you're looking at here. It's costing me about $5.20 a seat, and that's a per user license. So I think per user allows them about 5 devices.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a standalone SKU. You can add it to any tenant.
So I wonder the question needs to be asked, what don't you get? So if you can get this standalone Defender ATP thing as opposed to E5, what are we missing out on?
So I'm not seeing anything here that I don't have in a standard Defender ATP tenant for $5 a user.
Mark's just talking about something here. Sorry, continue having a conversation, guys.
What we usually do with our modern workplace clients is that we they don't want to go the full E5 suite. Is we offer the E3 suite with the identity protection add-on, which does not only add Defender ATP but also adds Office 365 ATP, Azure ATP, and stuff like that. So if you go with just the Defender ATP suite, you'll miss out on Office 365 ATP, Azure ATP 2, and stuff like that. And I think the extra cost for the identity protection add-on is about, in euros, it's about €8 or stuff, something like that.
Yeah, but what we're typically adding this to is already a Microsoft 365 Business Premium.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's already got a lot of the identity stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm just bolting this on for $5 and going.
Yeah.
Totally, yeah. So Mark's just shared.
Goodbye, Sophos.
Yeah, Mark's just shared this this slide deck with us. It just sort of shows us a little more in depth because I am never going to remember the SKU and licensing rules. So it's worth just going.
One day.
Fair enough.
You say that. Challenge accepted.
So what we're typically seeing in my exposure previously is either you'd go that Enterprise E5 or you'd go the security add-on for E3. But that's typically in the larger organizations. Look, for me, the M365 E5 is always going to be the easiest, but I do understand that from a dollar's point of view, it's it can be a little bit prohibitive.
Sure. But I mean, as you said, and as Mark has very, very nicely said in the chat, M365 E5 is the easiest solution to get all of these advanced metrics and security and access and whatever you want to call it, with the only disadvantage that it might be cost prohibitive. That's obviously always going to be a problem, but if you just need everything, E5 is going to get it for you.
Yeah, can I just jump in there though? I was already rolling an M365 Business Premium, so that's about $28, right?
Yeah.
And then I was rolling Sophos Intercept X Advanced, which has got an AV and a malware ransomware component. So on an MSP basis, that was costing almost $5. So drop that out of the equation, drop this one in, it's like 50 cents more for what I was spending. And it does so much more, and it's so much more integrated, and you can leverage it so much harder with PowerShell and Graph API and all the rest of it. So, and Sentinel, it just makes so much more sense. So that's kind of where I was going and what I was doing.
Oh, 100%. And that's it. The business premium licenses and all the business class licenses, the per user license really makes sense because you're looking for that value for dollar situation. With most of the enterprises that we deal with, we're talking the whole, it's a difference between $5 or $10 a user, and you extrapolate that out and, well, yeah, it's a big number, but the per seat cost, people just sit there and go, cool, and acknowledge it, especially when you factor in things like it's replacing carbon black, wireless, and everything associated around those technologies.
Yeah,
which,
that's right.
which, when you're comparing it from a value point of view, the other sort of elephant in the room is that those things are typically per device, and this is per user. So if you've got a user with multiple devices, it's a win-win-win for everybody.
Totally,
Yep.
totally.
In saying that, I've worked in a number of organizations where per user licensing burnt them really badly. And this is where you think shift workers, where you've got, say, a 24-hour shift with 3 people per computer. If I've got to pay 3 user licenses per computer.
Steve, I have a solution for that.
What's that, Ben? What's that?
In this amazing modern management workspace that we find ourselves living in, if you have a significant amount of shift workers or people hot desking on machines.
LTSB.
Yeah, sure. If you make sure that the devices are enrolled as a shared device, licensing is affected slightly differently.
Yes, that's correct.
Especially around Office, but I can only assume no to
LTSB.
Yeah.
I thought Mark was saying no to Ben.
Yeah, no,
You're wrong.
So yeah, if you deploy your device as a shared device, and there's a couple of ways to do that now. There's actually a really easy way to do it now, so that even if you haven't planned architecturally to do this, simply by going in and removing the assigned user to a device.
Let me show.
Yeah. So removing the user to a device immediately turns it into a shared device.
Yep. So if we go here, Windows,
which is huge, by the way. Yeah.
And that one there. And if we go to properties.
Yeah. So change primary user and remove primary user. Now, what I'd like to talk about here, and this is completely random, and I've just thought about this. So, all right, if you were initially, if you planned, you have a call center that you manage or whatever, and you had a bunch of devices that you needed to be deployed as shared devices, what you'd need to first assume or confirm is that they have the latest TPM 2.0 chip in them, because shared devices need the TPM 2.0 chip to do its self-driven encryption and sign-on.
That's just for the out-of-box component. Once it's gone through out-of-box, it's all good.
Yeah, that's right. But if you have a bunch of devices that for whatever reason were assigned as with primary users, all you need to do is remove that user, and it immediately drops the device into the shared use scenario, which solves the licensing problems that you would face.
Yep. And at that point, you can do Intune per device licensing. You can do Office 365 per device licensing. And in this case, Defender ATP per device licensing.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's always ways around that sort of stuff, which is good.
Yes. And then from there, you can also start looking at F1 licenses and all of that sort of stuff. Not to turn this into a licensing discussion. While
it's always a licensing discussion.
While Mark can't jump off mute and jump in.
I liked Mark's comment earlier that money is a human concept, so don't worry about how much everything costs.
Yeah.
Tell your bosses about that. I think they'll understand.
Just tell the CFO that, like in a large organization. see how they take that.
Money is but a human construct.
Cool. All right. Well, that covers off the Defender ATP stuff. There's a whole heap of additional stuff that we do recommend having a look at. If you don't have a tenant, go and spin one up. Go and get a trial version of M365 E5 and have a play around and see what's in there, because there's some really awesome features that you can spend 2 days in here and not find everything.
Yeah.
The important thing, there's a couple of things we didn't call out that we should have called out. So if you're wanting to do that live response and remote control, you need to go to settings, advanced features, turn on live response, turn on live response unsigned script execution. So that gives you the ability to sit there and run PowerShell scripts that you send up. which is
specifically unsigned scripts.
awesome. Yes.
The one key thing here is that you need to turn that on. So by default, it's very, very secure. So
Yes.
you can turn this on and run your hacky code that you know works 100% of the time, run it on a machine, get what you need, and then go back in and turn this back on or off for that matter.
Yep.
So, you can lock this down and make it super secure. This is not a threat vector that we need to be concerned about. The
Yep.
fact that we have very limited access to the device from this console is a great thing.
Yes.
And it basically it's got the controls in place so that you don't need to worry about turning it on.
Definitely. And that's really important to have on there. Yeah, I see the buggy text as well, and I don't know what's going on there. Is it hyperlinks? Yes, they're hyperlinks that have gone white. It's very, very cute.
Rob, that's by design.
So that, and the important thing as well is with the unsigned script execution, as an admin, we can sit there and say it's not allowed, and then any of your support staff that are using the live response scenario, they have to use trusted signed scripts to be able to do the work.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. And for the web proxy stuff, believe web filtering, you need to have
very good.
You need to have custom network indicators, and I believe is web content filtering as well.
Yeah, sure.
But that's just as a guess because I can't remember when we turned it on. Watch the video; it explains it really well.
When's that going up? Is that going up? We shouldn't really talk about interview training. It's a little.
It probably has already gone up.
Oh, really?
Can't remember.
Cool.
Maybe we should ask Adam. He's not here, so it's his fault.
He's asleep.
Yep.
Poor guys will tuck it out.
He decided rather than joining us here today, he would go to sleep.
Yeah. So has everyone got the latest version of Win 10? Mine's finished. I'm ready to start testing it.
That's because you have fiber.
Yes. I do.
Yes. All of my computers are already running 2004.
Yeah, you don't count.
Okay. I'm fine with that. So what is everybody's plan around getting the latest version of Windows 10 out to their fleet? Are they waiting and seeing, let Microsoft handle it with Windows Update for Business, or are they forcing it out there? Or are you using WSUS?
Oh. Very good, Mark. So Mark's been testing 2004 and 2019.
Forcing it out next 1 year of laughter. Nice. I like that one, Eric. Apparently everybody has high-speed internet. Well, this is where the whole delivery optimization over the internet is going to make everybody's life easier because we're all working from home. In Australia, we can just share it over the NBN and it'll be all fast and cached network.
Public network DO. Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, that's there by default.
Okay.
For when you're using Windows 10 Home and alike, it's actually doing DO for the internet. So It's going out to the internet and sharing it around.
Nice.
And yes, Mark, Windows Insider is definitely the way to go. Just not on your production device in fast stream.
Hey, Dave, who's your NBN with? Because I think I'm getting the same speed. I think Steve's getting the same speed as well.
Let's have a look. .com.
Also, for our international guests, the NBN is the government's very lackluster solution to giving us decent internet. It's only just starting to get usable.
Well, that's because we had how many million people work from home?
Yeah.
For the last... Office DO.
You've got fiber to the node and it's a max 50.
Yeah, man, that sucks balls.
What? Explain. Is it because you are paying for a 50 meg plan?
No, I paid for 100 initially, and they emailed me and said, "Sorry, we can't give you 100. The best you can get is 59." And I'm like, "Well, I'll pay for 50 then." Bugger.
Jesus.
Wow.
Who with?
I'm with Aussie now,
Yeah, right.
but yeah, it's just line length basically. The copper line's about 900 meters, I reckon.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So
That's
I'm
why
on
they
the-
that's why they abandoned FTTN pretty much for FTTC.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, got caught in the middle, unfortunately.
It's rough.
Yep. Hey, I'm happy with my hybrid coaxial. So this is going over the old Telstra Foxtel.
So,
cable.
Steve, you're actually quite lucky that you got that because most coax connections, so what is it? Hybrid
Hybrid
connections?
coaxial.
Most of them, especially with Optus, they basically sat there and went, look, this isn't reliable enough. We're just going to run copper. So in the previous place I was living, they decided that even though I had a Telstra cable connection, it was going to go NBN to copper and just leave the coax. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's-
good for you, Rob. How much are you paying
Yeah.
for that?
It's probably only paying like €20.
Yeah, but 20 euros like about 10,000 Australian dollars. Remember that,
I know, but €60. So
Oh,
like
including
a
TV.
million, $1 million
Very
Australian.
nice. I hope you're all aware that this is all going up on the internet. So,
No, the chat doesn't come up in the.
oh, I
recording.
know. We're just talking to nothing.
We should probably tell people what we're talking to, but where's the fun in that?
All right, what are we looking at here?
Okay. So that's actually a really great question.
Can you tell the
yes.
question to the class, please?
I will. So the question from Beta is, all right, when you're setting it up, you need to select a data storage location. And this is where your corporate data is going to be stored around. It's okay, Mark, my IP address changes randomly. It's
It
not
ain't
a
static.
concern. I'm not concerned if somebody sees my public IP address. Anyway, I digress. So the conversation is around the Defender ATP onboarding. You have a data storage location. Right now, there's only 3 locations, being the US, UK, and Europe. So obviously, they're very up to date with Brexit. And the UK needs to have its own location.
Yeah.
But the question was, well, what should be selected for Australia? And for me, I typically just select the US because it's going to be the fastest connection speed.
Yeah.
But that all comes down to your organizational compliance and regulatory requirements. You need to understand and agree with your security team and your risk team on where that's going to be located. But unfortunately, this is the 3 locations where it's currently located. I haven't heard that there's any plan to expand that to other regions, just because of how Defender is built.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry I can't give you an explicit answer there, Beta, but yeah, it depends on what is the requirements for your organization. But I'd normally recommend US just for it's faster.
Yeah.
How would it be for me, Stephen? Can you
Well-
pick all 3?
Yes, Bruce, you'll need to have one for each of your domains, and then you'll have different digital certificates for each one. So Bruce works for a large multinational organization that's spread across the world. So he needs
In one tenant.
Yes. He would need to work out which region is the best suited. And the primary continent where the organisation is based out of isn't on the list, so I'd be saying US. Although in saying that, let's face it, most people in your organisation would be more concerned from Europe, so I'd dump it in the Europe tent.
Yeah, for sure.
Like Germany.
Yes, because it'll handle the GDPR conversation a lot
Well,
easier.
does that? I mean, I guess that's an important question, and it's something that I definitely found last year when I was over in Germany. Is saying that the data is in Europe enough, or does it need to be in Germany?
Oh,
Because that's a big one, right? Like,
yeah, it's a big one, and
needs to be in Germany. That's what I thought. Because all right, so I presented some talks at PSConf EU. Rest in peace. I really wish I was there in a couple of weeks. And I was talking about Intune, and everyone was like, "It was really cool, but we can't use it." I'm like, "Why?" I'm like, "Because they can't promise that the data will be stored in Germany."
well, the one that I find most entertaining is Tasmania in Australia.
Yeah,
The Tasmanian government has an on-island policy for all of its data.
that's crazy.
So to put it into context for those watching at home, Tasmania is what, 200,000, 300,000 people? And they've just put this blanket rule in there to say all government data has to stay on island. It's around sitting there and making sure that they have business and processes and initiatives occurring on island, but
Yeah.
it becomes a bit onerous in these sorts of situations where you're sitting there and going, well, how can I pick Tasmania from the US, UK, or Europe?
Yeah, exactly. You can't. Yeah.
So I guess the question is what attributes are actually up there? Is it just reports, alerts? Are there any email addresses that get uploaded? Anything
Yes.
vaguely PII that's
Yes.
up there?
Think everything is going up there. Like
Everything that we're looking at here is stored and accessed through an API that is native for ATP or Defender. So anything that we can see is being stored.
Yep.
Yep.
So theoretically, they should all be GUID sitting behind the scenes and connecting GUID to GUID and all of that good stuff. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
you'd need to use.
I don't know enough, and you would need to get that confirmed before you went and did that beyond what you're committing to, if that makes sense.
Because you can't drill down on your user account and end up in AAD, right? It's just data. So it's technically de-identified in that it's not linked back to your AAD account, but it's still very much enough to be a risk.
Yeah. But it's got email addresses. It's got SIP. So there is PPI here, right? Like if you go to the timeline, I can see everything you're doing.
Mark's asked, what about graph? Is this data in a graph endpoint, or is it in its own endpoint?
This is in its own graph endpoint. So if I go here to API Explorer, it's doing the same. It looks the same as graph, but it's its own API.
Yeah, cool.
So if you're sitting here, I'm hitting API-US because my data is located in the US. If it's UK, if it's EU, it would go to each of the others, and then we'd hit that API and pull that information back. So if I go here and go, hey, I want to bring back, let's do the last 10 reported devices.
Should be one, right?
Yeah. And there's that one device. And it comes back and it looks exactly the same as what we would look at graph in Graph Explorer.
So that's what I was going to say. The good thing about this is that if you've got experience with the Graph API, any API really, but specifically Graph, you're gonna get along fine in this.
Yeah, the authentication's a little bit more complicated, but that's
using OAuth.
It is, but it's a little bit. There's an extra step in there. Well, yeah, it's in that script set that I left for you guys.
Cool.
And that'll be something we'll talk through on another discussion point. But this is where you have the ability here to go and run an advanced hunting query. So you can go and build out your own query that's used PowerShell and
that's actually a Kusto command.
Yes, it is.
Which is awesome. So again, I can't stress this enough. If you guys haven't played with Kusto, start. It's really good. It's not hard to learn.
So regarding the hooks for Power App, this is the cool part, right? If we go to Power Automate, no, what is it? flow.microsoft.com. And we're going to sign in because it doesn't auto sign in like all good Microsoft products.
I actually called this Flow by Microsoft Power Automate today.
Nice.
Yeah.
I hope it was like in a demo or something.
Yeah, no, it was for a client.
So if we go here, let's have a look, see if I've got any flows already created. I do not. Let's go and create a very simple one. We're going to do a
automated flow. Just the first one. And then go skip.
Skip. The automator, formerly known as Flow. I like that one.
Yeah. Search.
So security.
Sure.
And this is where you've got the Microsoft Graph security. And we've got these triggers where we have all new alerts, high security alerts, or high severity alerts. From there, we also have the ability then to create actions off that information. So what we've done previously in other solutions is rather than using the triggers and using the alerts, because sometimes they can get convoluted and hard to maintain, what we do is we have a recurring trigger that will go off and run a there's the ability to go and it's not there. They keep on updating this, but there's the ability to go in and query and run a query on the actual tenant to pull that information back. So then you could sit there and go, hey, go and run this advanced query. See more. It's been moved. But that's where you can use all of those logics, right?
So it could also be, Steve, that because we've got to do that initial trigger, you might not have the full breadth. So if you just do like a response or a HTTP endpoint query and then start another one.
Yeah, let's do this. Let's just do a
request. Up top.
Webbook.
No, don't. Just do
premium.
It's not. Go type in request.
And let's just do manual trigger.
Sure. Okay. Why not?
Because then we want to go here and we want to go security graph. And what we would need to do start off with is obviously we need to get the subscription.
Yeah.
Get active subscription.
You're gonna have to start the trial.
Sure, even though I've got an E5 associated.
Show of hands in the chat. How many people have actually played around with Power Automate?
Or Flow.
Or Flow, whatever you want to call it. I still call it Flow.
Or Logic App.
Well, it's not Logic Apps. It's a different thing.
Yeah. So we've got Stefan, we've got Mark, we've got Rob.
Nice. You guys using it in production environments?
Yes.
I can only assume so. Excellent.
Yep.
Minimally. What are you, Rob? Unmute yourself. Let's have a chat. What are you using it for?
He doesn't want to unmute.
He's shy.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a mic. That'll do it.
So if we go here, we're just going to grab alerts. And here's where we can put our filters.
Yeah, cool.
And you can go beyond that and add additional stuff. So then once you've got those alerts, we can go in here and we can do a for each loop of apply to each, and then go and do stuff. So this is where you can have that automated email. You can have, as Stefan put it, you can approve isolating machines by email.
Yeah.
You can sit there and have it so it will drop off an email to somebody to say, do you approve this application running on this device? Yes, no.
And the big thing about this, if people haven't seen it, is when you send those conditional emails to people, they get a big, a button to press. Do you approve this? Yes or no. So it's that automated workflow processing that makes sense for people without having to spend a lot of time or resources to get it built up.
Definitely, and the best thing about it for that sort of stuff is it's an adaptive card in your email.
Yeah.
So if I sit there and say yes to approve Ben to have application X, the next time I go and look at that email, it will say you've already approved this. You don't need to do anything about it. So, and it's all built into that same workflow. So if we put in here an approver workflow, and we want to do start and wait for an approval. We then go here and say, everyone must approve, and you could have it as a change request scenario. Or you can go in here and say, well, I just want first to respond, or wait for next response.
Yeah.
So there's some really powerful components here. And then from there, we can build out that scenario. Yep, I agree, Eric. So much possibility, so little time.
Yeah. I mean, what I find funny about Power Automate is that it's always seemed to me as like a beginner's thing, and it's not really good enough, like logic apps and that sort of stuff. And even just like native Azure functions are always recommended because they're so much more powerful. But you can do everything in this, and there's very little learning. The learning curve is minimal at best. But because we have full ternary operators and like conditional everything, we can create very, very complex and powerful solutions. And I fail to see why this isn't the be all and end all.
Yes. And Stefan's just made a really good point is, look, Defender ATP and quite a few of the components that we're using here are premium features. Inside Flow / Power Automate /
and
Logic app.
So in saying that, a P2 license, here we go. How's my my licensing? A P2 license, which is the most expensive Power Automate license you can get in Australia, costs $15 a month.
Wow.
Which is probably about a fraction of a cent in Europe, or it's not expensive, and you can get by if you just need the premium connectors, you can use a P1 license, which is about $5 a month. So it's not cost prohibitive.
So I thought it was part of M365. I don't have M365.
I believe that it should be. You can turn it on, so you can turn on P1 or plan 1 or plan 2.
Interesting. I'll have to have a look later.
Unless they've taken it out, because that would actually explain the problem that I had today. But it's Flow for Office 365. No, that's not it. But yeah, it's not expensive.
Yeah.
But it is fair to put that out there. If you see a premium tag on a connector, it means that you probably don't have the license for it. And you need to put that into context.
Yep.
Exactly. Just get it. Just get it.
All about just getting it.
Yeah. Be like Mike. Use Flow.
Exactly. But one of the things for me that I think is so important with regards to Flow is it's something that you can get non-developers doing that.
Yeah.
So for me, when I was setting up a Dynamics 365 implementation previously, my goal was to put all automation into Flow. Rather than even though we had on staff 4 developers that could sit there and automate and write custom code and custom solutions, the overhead to maintain it was a lot less putting it into Flow, Logic App, or one of those applications like that. Ideally Flow, and then it's that the end user is responsible for their own destiny. And one of the big things around that as well is if we're sitting there and saying, well, the end user is responsible for their own destiny, they can then go and automate things that have frustrated them. They can go and automate a process to go and put a message into Teams every week to say, go and check the bins, or do coffee machine, or blah.
Totally. I think the sort of the pathway to get people excited about this stuff from a non-technical perspective is getting them to do those automated emails. You get them in that process of this is how you send out those things, and then they go, oh, what else can I do? And then then you've got a little chaotic developer on your hands.
Yes, Ben.
Yes. Mark's just checking. So what he said was that it looks like they stripped out some of the Flow stuff from the bundled inclusions with Office 365. That would actually make a lot of sense, because I just had a scenario where I have a Flow app running in a client environment that is still running, but they can't modify it because they no longer have the licenses to modify. The only parts of the actual Flow that are premium are the return response. So when it finishes, it returns the object back to the triggered machine. So to fix that, we needed to add a license to it. And their question to me today was, why am I getting this now? And why is it still working? And the answer obviously is that at some point they had a license for it and they don't anymore.
Yep. Exactly. Cool. Well, that was a fun little rabbit hole that we went down there, Ben.
Sure was. I could talk about Flow for a very long time. I think it's really, really fun.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the same with that whole automation stuff around whether you're doing it a full-fledged automation engine with PowerShell or Azure Functions or Azure Automate, any of those fun technologies, or even down to Flow or Power Automate, it's still pretty good. It's well worth spending that time to know which tool is best for which scenario.
Completely. Mark's just put in a link for the licensing options for Power Apps. It was updated. Oh, it was quite a while ago. It was July last year.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Yeah. $15 per month.
Yeah.
And then there's Flow per business process as well.
Yeah. So business processes is generally around, say, like things like user onboarding and like actual business workflows, which is something that's actually really cool. And it's not something I've looked into, but I know people where I work are doing. It's there's a lot more value just beyond what we're talking about as well.
It's easier to justify to finance.
100%.
One business process.
Yeah.
You can go, oh, we've got now a few hundred in there. Now we can license it for everyone.
Yeah. There's another
easiest way to validate it for finance is to show them how to do their macros with Power Automate.
Yeah. So they've just introduced recently, probably in the last couple of months, the ability to like literally do like macro, like recorded screen clicking in Flow. So you can automate a process of going to a form and clicking on a button. I haven't used it, but it's a thing that exists. So like the trying to convince your finance department or whatever to get this is fairly minimal when you show them that you can actually automate repetitive tasks exactly like people used to do macros. It's like, you don't need VBA anymore, my guy.
VBA, that was a fun language to learn
Oh,
and
yeah.
then forget.
I actually had I worked with a contractor once who wrote an entire like workflow automation script inside an Excel VBA macro. I'm like, we're not doing that. That's not production.
Yeah. Well,
It was rough.
at our previous employer, they had the whole document generation solution written in VBA.
Oh, they did too. Yeah. Oh, yeah, they did. That's all right. That's kept someone employed for a very long time. Good on them.
Yep. Yes, indeedy. Cool. Does anybody else have any questions while we're here, or are we all questioned out?
We'll leave the chat up for a little bit.
Oh,
Hey, Steve,
Bruce.
Have you showed anyone the security recommendations? Since you introduced me to it, it's one of the best things that.
This one here.
It's like hidden. It's a hidden gem in there. Yeah, for me. Yeah.
Yeah. So I showed it per computer, but this is the whole per tenant view. So this environment doesn't have any third-party apps or anything like that. But if we had something like Acrobat installed, so Acrobat Reader, any of those technologies, it would pop up here and say, hey, there's an update. You need to go and do stuff. You need to go and install that update. And it's a security concern. You need to go and make these changes.
So this is kind of like a device-based secure score, right?
Yeah.
Kind of? Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably a good way to explain it.
Yeah, it's gamifying security.
Yes. Because the goal is you want to have this as little as possible. And while you'll see here, all of this is Microsoft related, what I'm trying to call out is that it's not just Microsoft related. It's also doing third party. We just don't have anything beyond that in our tenant.
Yeah.
And one of the best things about it is if we go to the update here.
I posted a picture of mine that shows the third-party apps like you're mentioning.
Cool.
Nice.
Hey, we've got a question from Beta around onboarding devices on Defender ATP using Intune.
Yep. It's easy.
Yeah.
If we go here, sorry, Bruce, I'll just quickly show this one because it is actually super straightforward. So if we go here, if we go to Defender ATP, and we just go on, and it'll automatically go set it all up for you. And then what you should be then creating is a policy to set the configuration, which is under, this is new for me. I'm assuming it's going to be under antivirus. Properties. Settings.
Endpoint detection.
Endpoint protection, did you say?
No, detection. You were so close.
Was that?
Yeah, just go back. Just go back. It's
This
endpoint
one.
detection. Yeah, that's the one.
Yep. If we create a policy here. Sorry, everybody. I haven't been in the portal for a bit. Demo. Next. And we can turn on the expedited telemetry. Highly recommend that unless you've got some network constraints, but most people shouldn't have that issue. And I'd recommend turning on that sample sharing for all files, but that comes down to your security requirements and how you want to trust that data.
Yeah.
So let me just quickly have a look at that screen grab. That's fine. Just going to download that. So I'll quickly show that image for the video, if you're okay with that, Bruce.
Yeah. To answer, so Mark's just asked, the thing is you can enable it with that policy or using ATP security baseline. Correct. It doesn't really matter where you do it. Very much like all these new endpoint security policies and stuff, it's giving us now, there's a couple of different places to do it. I'm assuming in the next couple of months there's going to be a consensus on what the best place to do it is. So it's very much a watch this space, and we can get back to what we sort of recommend as the best place to configure these policies.
Yep. So just bear with me. I'm just going to play around a little bit here to get this up. Yeah, Mark, sorry, I'm not going to give you control to my computer.
That was a good attempt.
It really was. So here's a demo from Bruce's tenant. Thankfully, thank you, Bruce, for providing this, which is where you can see Oracle JRE needs an update. So it's FireZilla, Firefox, Fortinet, and you can see that it's sitting there and calling out that there's updates required there.
It's really good. It's really, really good.
It even tells you Zoom needs an update and how many weaknesses you'll see here, which is blurred out on Bruce's screen, is the number of devices that are exposed. And then you've got that cool graph that tells you yes or no, we're happy. So if I go back over here, sorry, Ben, go.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I mean, the cool thing about this is that you can basically build out, actionable items from this. So for those that work in a ticket-based environment, it's very easy to trigger those off as tickets and then just go, we need these actions, you go do these first, actionable items, I'll do the rest, and then you just knock it out. I think it's really, really cool.
Exactly. And one of the things that I really like is the fact that we can go in here and look at those weaknesses that are being highlighted. So we have 91 weaknesses. If we go, let's just go back through the breadcrumbs and we click on here. We've selected our Windows 10. It needs an update. Cool. We need to go do stuff.
Yeah. From
there, we can click through and we can say, well, what are the actual vulnerabilities? And look, there's an elevation of privileged vulnerability exists for direct access. That seems pretty important. We need to update that. So if we go back here, we have remediation options. And you can go and have tickets being opened. And this is the cool part is we want this done. Let's see if this actually works.
Yeah, I was about to say, where do these tickets exist?
So what happens is when you hit submit request, what's supposed to happen is now we go back over to Intune and we go endpoint security and we go to security tasks.
Yeah.
And what should appear here is any tasks that's been assigned by the security team to process. Right now,
it might take a little while.
It could take a little bit of time to process through, and there it is there. And we can click on that and we
can assign this to the user as well.
Yep. I don't know if there's anything like this in the Netherlands. I'm sure if you reach out to Jan Katal Skunky on Twitter, he'll be able to point you in the direction. Otherwise, Mirko, I believe, runs one in Switzerland. So there's a few floating around.
Someone put Yap's address in the thing and just go and stand out the front of his place. I'm sure he'd be happy to talk with you about modern management night or day.
Exactly. He's not on the call, is he?
He's not. I mean, he's always technically here. He's always in my heart, you see.
That's right.
Exactly. He's always in a call.
Anyway, we've digressed. But this is the security task that we've just put through and went, hey, you need to go and do stuff. What you need to do is download Windows 10, update Windows 10.
Yeah.
And
then do one of the following.
And then assign it. I think that may need to be updated because in the Intune world, we're not going to download the Windows 10.
Yeah.
And we're not going to update Windows 10 version in Intune using the download app. So there is some verbiage that needs to be improved, but this is where it's being processed. So But that I think one of the cool features is we have that ability to assign those tasks now, and we can accept or we can reject it and go, all right, yep,
Yeah.
no, I accept that I need to do this.
So
Yes.
it's a manual task, and it's not like it's going to start
Well,
the task automatically.
It could.
No. Well, it could if you automate it, but
You could automate the process so that any of these security recommendations immediately trigger the creation of security tasks, and those security tasks send out emails saying, "Hey, you've got a whole bunch of new security tasks." So this could be a proactive like workload generator if you wanted it to be.
Yep.
I'm now wondering, is this task generation API available so that we can create our own tasks?
I believe so.
So not ones that just come from security recommendations, but can I go, I've noticed that, 10 apps are failing to install, please investigate, or, this app has failed 25 times.
I believe so.
So as presented in Ignite, right? Endpoint analytics, they will have the proactive remediation. So maybe this will integrate with the proactive remediations in the future.
Yeah. Seems like that might be it, but yeah, this is really cool. My head's spinning. I can think of a bunch of different ways. So like the thing that Steve and I set up where I work and where Steve abandoned me is
Ben has abandonment issues, just so everybody knows.
I do. So at the moment we've got like a bunch of automation like run books sitting there looking for how many times the thing fails, and if it fails X amount of times, we'll generate a ticket or an item that goes to Teams and lets our support team know that there's a problem. We could integrate that into Endpoint Manager, as well as sending out the Teams thing. So say, hey, in Teams, there's a new work item. Please go in and action it.
Yep.
Cool. Well, I'm going to be busy.
Yeah, you are. Why is that not going through? Because it didn't like selecting today as the date. There you go. And this gives us then we can step across here and we'll see that coming straight through eventually. Yeah. Given the fact that it has the ability to have assign to, but there's no UI there for it, I would assume that there will be an API that you can use to do that. But I haven't looked at it to that level. I just know that it exists today.
I'll play around with it for the next if there's interest, I can spend some time working on this, and I can show you how to interact with this programmatically. I know I can get into the reads pretty quickly with this sort of stuff, but if there is interest, I'm happy to do it.
I'm just thinking all my ServiceNow customers going, I want to integrate.
Oh yeah, totally. Yep.
Well, and that's it. I don't know if there is a ServiceNow connector for security for Defender ATP.
Look, it wouldn't surprise me if there is.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
ServiceNow's, like I have some abandonment issues on leaving the place I worked at previously just because they just set up ServiceNow, and then I left it for something significantly worse. It wouldn't surprise me if ServiceNow doesn't have those connectors already, and if they don't have them yet, I'm sure they'll be there soon. This stuff is going to be pretty easy to action just from looking at it. But yeah, okay. So there seems to be enough interest. I'll get a demo ready for next month. If it's super easy, I'll chuck it up on my blog as well. It just seems like something that there's going to be a lot of benefit in being able to create workloads from a central endpoint. So yeah, okay, cool. I'm going to work on this. This is fun. I definitely don't have too much on my plate already, but yeah, let's do it.
It's awesome. My next engagement is can we get rid of traditional AV for a large company? So,
I mean, yes, 100% you can. But we love silence.
No, I'm still running my government copy of VET.
Is all the data coming to?
There's the Victorian right there.
Yeah. Is all the data coming to the Microsoft Security Center computer from the ATP profiles, or does it come from Windows Analytics?
Comes from ATP profiles.
Yeah.
Windows Analytics. Look,
So you gotta have a ATP then.
yes. So
For all
Windows
of them.
Analytics still requires, Desktop Analytics, because Windows Analytics doesn't exist anymore. Desktop Analytics is
Well, I'm saying
associated.
analytics in general, right?
You still need to have the Defender ATP license and profile associated, because it's pulling back the telemetry from there across into Defender ATP. If you don't have the telemetry turned on to do that, it's not going to work.
Right. Yeah, I meant telemetry, but you still need ATP in order to get any of this.
In a nice shiny GUI, yes, but I'm sure if you were to sit there and build your own API and engine, you could pull the data off telemetry, but good luck.
There's always ways. Look, there is always ways to get that data. The question you need to ask yourself is, how much sleep do you need? And how like, is it
how much
really
Red
worth?
Bull are you going to drink?
Yeah, how many wings do you need? Honestly, it's a question that probably is just like, if you need to ask that, just do it properly. Just use the telemetry, do it that way.
And the other one that I'd love, or that I'm hoping to see soon, is the desktop analytics stuff coming to Intune Pure.
Totally.
Standalone. There's no roadmap on that at the moment, unfortunately, but it is what it is, unfortunately. Cool. It's that time of the meeting, Ben. We need to change our background, do we?
I believe so, yes.
Awesome.
You're still waiting on a standalone DO server? Doesn't Doink exist?
Yeah. Sorry, it's delivery optimization in network cache.
Yeah, Doink.
Oh, hang on. Technically, no. So what Mark's referring to is to use the connected cache in Intune, you need to have config manager co-management to have the content coming out with a distribution point.
Yeah, right. Okay.
It's this gray area that's technically you can get away without it.
Yeah.
I believe Nick, if he's still on the call, has dug into that. No, he's not. But there has been talk that you can do it just for Intune by itself, but it's not straightforward and not well documented.
Okay.
That's a very nice capital I there, Mark, twice.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
I feel like you're really painting a picture.
Yep. Word picture with the letter I. Or is it the letter L? I can't tell.
Yeah, we're not using the right font for this.
Yeah. SCEM? What's SCEM?
Endpoint manager?
Yeah, but what's SC?
I can unmute now.
Oh,
hey!
Mark, welcome.
Welcome.
Yeah, it's after 7. Yeah, it's after 7, so I don't have to have 3 instances of Teams running. But I can still hear at least another version of me. Which is probably me having multiple windows open.
Yes. But what's SCEM? Because System Center Endpoint Management?
I was just using it as one of the many variations
That
of
doesn't
Endpoint
exist.
Manager.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's MEM-CM or nothing, dude.
Yeah.
No, I'll just rearrange.
We're not talking about a theme here.
MEM-SCEM?
Yeah, just throw random combinations together.
Oh, I mean, one of those is going to eventually be a marketing term. So I'm going with Microsoft Endpoint Service Center Endpoint Manager.
Yeah. And what we'll do is we'll register every variation
Wait.
of that.
For Intune.
Yes. Awesome. Well,
See you, Ralph.
they're off. Bye.
No, I just switched headsets.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah,
Sounds
We're
good.
proud of you.
yeah, so that I don't hear multiple versions. No, the other day I was getting really good results with like no specific DO server infrastructure, but fresh Office installs were just coming in like crazy.
Yeah, right.
Very, very impressed.
Okay.
I'm impressed as well, as I've previously had issues with DO and Office, and
Well, I think there was that week where everyone was having issues. There was something weird going on.
Because they tied the Office packages to the update channel. So everyone had their DO set to don't worry about downloading these during business hours. And then people were trying to onboard their devices.
Yeah.
It was a great time to be alive.
yes, that was a fun 2 weeks. Awesome. Well, I think we'll wrap up there unless somebody has objections, as we all need to start organising our food for our relative parties.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, thanks for everybody sticking around. I've had a lot of fun doing this session. I'm sure Ben has as well.
Yeah, and Mark obviously as well. He, now that he can talk.
Yeah. Working Perth time is lots of fun.
Yeah, it's rough.
Yep.
So we'll make sure that we get this video up a lot quicker than we did last month. It took a little while to get everything set up, so apologies if anyone was relying on that. As basically as soon as it's ready, I'll throw it up, and I'll let everyone know in meetups and on Twitter as well.
Awesome.
Okay, excellent.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, let's
See you
stop
later,
the
everyone.
recording, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
See you guys.
Bye. Whoa.